All right, so you have identified your problem, you have identified the causes. Now you're starting to design your intervention, and you wonder what should you keep in mind. And the novelty of that intervention is one of the key aspects to keep in mind to get a good grade. So what do I mean by that? This is here from the marking guide for first. It says you have the work demonstrates substantial creative thinking, for example, in relation to including a novel intervention component or combining existing interventions in a novel way, or adapting existing interventions to a novel context. So what is really bad if you, let's say you want to do something about bullying in school, there's a lot of interventions already out there. So you just take an existing intervention, kind of reframe it a little bit, and that is your intervention. So you get a relatively low mark on novelty. And so that's important to keep in mind, to not copy somebody else's intervention. I think if I would look at my intervention where I wrote the manual and the presentation, the example ones, that's probably the weakest point of my intervention, that the novelty is somewhat lacking. It is basically a transfer of existing interventions to a somewhat novel context, but it's not super high in novelty. So what did the students did in the first round of the seminar? Well, the first group that I try to help teenagers with mental health problems to actually seek help, the group here. What they did is that the super ambitious program had a 4-day workshop, which had each day had a different component, and each day addressed one of the identified causes in a novel way. So they went from trying to increase the introspection the teenagers had to help them identify their mental health problems early on, to reduce stigma, to identify coping strategies and train them to have better coping strategies, and where to find help. So each of these components is really detailed and novel, and the level of ambition and the level of novelty in designing your own 4-day workshop. That was the reason why this intervention won in the first iteration of the seminar Best Intervention by 2 outside experts. So that's really good to get inspired. The problem with the second group was that there's no real great interventions that show effective ways of reducing prejudice. And I thought what they did was a super novel and bold combination. They said, okay, for each police department within London, we give them a quote. You have to fulfill this quota. If not, we take some money away from you. So taking money away from you is more effective than giving money, has research shown. This was based on loss aversion, so that's a really good way. And furthermore, to increase performance and kind of show you which level you are with your representation, we will monitor and display your progress in comparison to the other police departments in London. So you had 2 effective components from very different fields that were applied to this novel context. Somewhat bold, somewhat maybe controversial, but well-founded, and I really liked it. In the third group, did a combination of kind of existing ones. So they had the first step in there is like an identification, like who is the person, what are the problems, and also filling out some personality style difference measures in order to get a better understanding for why the person might be in that. The second step was kind of like a classic in debt reduction. They would set up with the client a automatic savings account. So instead of saying at the end of the month, whatever money is left over, I will save, just like at the beginning of the month, you automatically get something deducted from your account and transferred into your account to reduce your debt. And the third one, and that was the real novel one, was that they kind of looked at based on the input from the first section and divided people into these 2 groups with different motivations and different strategies, and then had different ways of dealing with each of these groups with their debt. So that was a real novel component that I have not seen before, where you kind of, based on individual differences, design different interventions for each participant in the intervention. So that was really novel and really cool, and I liked that a lot.